shit. Anyway.
Okay, now we are live.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, to keep you waiting, but happy Thursday. Still Thursday over there, right, Connor?
Yes, it's a very warm Thursday. I say warm, it's about 17, 18 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. Nobody understands Fahrenheit, but it's warm for an Irishman, and so I'm hot.
Yeah, but it's June, right?
Yeah, I know, but nothing ever gets hot in Ireland, but 16, 18 degrees for you you'd be wearing a jumper and a jacket in San Diego.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Well, welcome everyone. Happy Thursday. My name's Ruby from the Feed Real Institute, and I've got the lovely Dr. Conor Brady with us today. It is such a pleasure to have you back. I think you've been with us at least a couple of times, at least on a live. And if you guys didn't already know, we put out a survey, which Connor didn't believe this, but we put out a survey and we said, which one of our international speakers would you like back for this year's Feed Real Summit? And hands down, Connor, you were the winner.
Boom. I showed that image to my wife and she was like, you're such a needy little gimp. And I was like, oh, right. There's just no impressing her. But I was delighted to hear that. So thanks to the 4 or 5 people that voted for me. In that,
oh, no. I think it was over 100 people that voted.
Over 100 people at Lane St. John. Did you know? That's amazing.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so he is going to be back this October 11th and 12th here in San Diego. So much more beautiful than where you are. So I know you're not upset about being back in San Diego.
No.
Yes, and he's going to be a speaker at the summit and, drop us all, as you always do, so much research and information and hopefully things that we're going to touch on a little bit today.
Yeah.
So if you don't have your tickets yet, make sure you guys jump on it because they are going fast.
Yeah, I got some cool stuff ready for this talk. It's kind of like I shouldn't compare it to that, but it's like you're preparing a kind of a talk, a show, and you're practicing in smaller kind of areas, and you hone it and you realize what bits work and what bits don't, and you might have 2 or 3. I might have 2 or 3 new things on the hop each year, and this talk will be like an amalgamation of them. It's just fitted so perfectly. In fact, I'm panicking about the fact I've only got 60 minutes, much like last year, and so trying to get the goodies into but I've got some seriously cool stuff to talk about. I can't wait. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And even just talking about it, I don't want to give away anybody. I don't want them to head off to ChatGPT and start digging into the stuff that I've already dug into. I want the reveal to be fresh, but it's going to be talking about probiotics, prebiotics, and pathogens. What are they? What do we know? And, I'm going to hopefully leave people far more confused than they were coming in, as opposed to giving them answers. I'm going to send them off far more confused than I am at the moment. And there's just so much good. Even the prebiotics bit, the fiber bit, even what we've been told about plant fiber all these years, it's just another thing that when you look immediately, as soon as you look into the top 3 or 4 things that you thought about plant fiber, as soon as you look into it and just peel back, you go, oh, well, let's have a look at the studies for that. And it's, oh my God, the absolute opposite. And so it is a serious thing because, here we are all using a bit of plant matter in the dog's diet. And when I'm designing raw dog food products, I pop in a bit of colorful stuff, it looks good, but really I am probably doing that less and less as time goes on, and this study will really call into question because it turns out prey animals have all the stuff that plants have without the baggage, and so there's just so much cool studies to show on that. So I just cannot wait to get into that, and maybe to spell a bit about probiotics. The probiotic talk I recently did in the US, we have got major, not issues, but I think we're going to look back on our probiotic use the way we look back on our antibiotic use, which is, whoops, that probably wasn't the best approach. And some of the findings on the probiotic stuff is really interesting. The things we commonly do at the moment, from testing poo to how much does that actually replicate what's in the actual gut, which is, and there's just so many studies showing long-term probiotic use has some major issues. And so it's like, in the acute phase, we might use probiotics. What is a probiotic at the end of the day? Because there's bacteria, but there's also a whole other half of the biome, which we don't talk about, and we can use them too. And then I'm talking about pathogens as well. What's a pathogen at the end of the day? I mean, people just use the word pathogen to sell you shit. Excuse me, sell you stuff. But at the end of the day, pathogens is a symptom of dis-ease. And it's not something that you need to kill and squish and repress and, it's something that we need to work out. Why did this ease in the environment that this guy grew to these ridiculous numbers and is now a pathogen? But he wasn't a pathogen in small numbers. He was your buddy. He was doing helpful things and in the right numbers. And we have more numbers of some bugs than others, but ultimately anything can be a pathogen. So those three, pathogen, probiotic, prebiotic, I am very confused on. And all this happened in a year. They're three different talks. And so I'm going to try and get that done in 60 minutes. But I'm really excited to present because nobody's talking about these three particular things where we're just going gun-ho with the latest products to come out because we're all giddy. We're all dog nerds. And as soon as something new comes out, it's like, ooh, a nutraceutical. What's that? And it's like, oh, I'm going to use that. But, when it comes to gut flora and microbiology and yeast and bacteria, these things are ancient and unbelievably adaptive. And we really poorly understand 80% of the gut flora. We haven't a clue what it is. And I'll give you one little teaser. Sorry, I'm talking a lot here, but this topic is, you don't need to be here, Ruby. You can just, if you need
I'll
to
see you guys later.
Yeah. Here's one little tidbit. At the moment, the probiotic industry is completely consumed with producing over-the-counter probiotics containing lactobacillus and bifido. Lacto and bifido. Lacto. In every probiotic, you're going to see those. Maybe a bit of bacillus. Those three groups. And you know why we use those all the time? Because they tolerate oxygen. They are oxygen-breathing aerobic bacteria. But that's not the bacteria that's in your guts. They're anaerobic bacteria. They're not like in huge numbers, lactobacillus and bifido. They are other groups and communities. And so the reason we use so much lacto and bifido is because we can make them in a lab. And if we can make them in a lab, we can sell them as a product. And if we can sell them as a product, you're going to get the studies on it.
Well, and then they're shelf stable, right?
Yeah, and they can live there because if you try to produce anaerobic bacteria in a lab, the oxygen kills them. It's poisonous to them. And I was just going to say something else. I was going to ruin my talk. I'm not going to say it. But so, those little things, and there's a huge amount of those little questions where it's put to you. I was talking to this microbiologist who just threw that at me like it was a normal thing. And I was like, she goes, well, how do you make she goes, the long-term studies of just pushing in one community into the gut are absent. All we have is 3 or 4 from China. And the results of those are, I wouldn't be using the long term at all. In the acute phase, my dog, different topic. My dog just had HGE. I don't know if you've experienced that, but it's hemorrhagic gastroenteritis. So a bug so bad in his guts that he pooed out his gut lining. And what started off as bad diarrhea, I went away for 3 or 4 days to Euro Disney with my family. Awesome. Not quite as good as Orlando, but absolutely awesome. And Duds is profoundly attached to me, and he's getting older. He's a bit of a sore back, and there's probably other dogs around. So he picked up a bug, and what started off as bad poos suddenly turned into, my kitchen was like a crime scene. It was blood, like puddles of blood. He was pooing out blood, and I was like, and it's jelly. It looks like dark purple jelly. And he's lying on the ground, completely dehydrated. On one night, he pooed out all his water, and he couldn't even drink water. I was thinking, why wouldn't you drink in that situation? So
is this what you came home to, or did this happen while you were gone?
As I came home and picked him up, and he's doing his insane hello greeting, he puts out a poo, and it was a normal enough poo, bit wet, I thought maybe, but he's stressed out of his eyeballs to see me, so it's not unusual. By the time we got home, the poos degenerated, 2-3 poos. I went, oh, this isn't going the right way. That night, a few poos in the kitchen, and they were stinking. It's a horrible smell. But it was the following day that the poos disintegrated into brown oxtail soup, brown soup, and then what looked like tinges of red, but it can be hard to tell because you're just thinking this is just terrible diarrhea. So I'm fasting them and I'm doing my bits and pieces. And then that night then is when the blood was everywhere in the kitchen. I had to rush to the vet, and I was quite alarmed. The point is, in that instance, I'd use a probiotic. Hell yeah, anything, any port in a storm to get me out of this terrible gut issue that the dog has. I'm more talking about the long-term use of probiotics, and it calls into question which probiotics you use, because when you think about prebiotics and pathogens and stuff. So I'm going to knit all this together in a very concise talk, guys. But
concise.
Yeah. I'll do the first half live, and I'll do the second half at the bar after. That's all.
Yes. Yeah. I think you did that at last year's happy hour.
Yes.
All right. Well, looking forward to that. You said a lot of things, and I wrote down some notes because I would have some questions on that. I just want to remind everyone that we're gonna probably go about 45 minutes today. Usually we try to keep our talks around that length, but you know, Conor goes on and on and on, and I tease him about it all the time. Would love to know where everyone is joining in from. It looks like we have Leslie from Scotland. Tracy, you're back. I can't remember where you're joining in from, but she has a good question here that we are going to get to here in a moment. So we've got Conor on. Drop your questions in the comments. We'll chat for about 45 minutes and then do a Q&A. So whenever you guys have questions and you got to leave, just make sure you leave them in the comments, and we'll do the replay here this coming week. Okay, so what did I think about when you were saying that? The first is on probiotics. I hope I can ask this. I know you had a probiotic product not too long ago. It was something that we had last year given out, or you worked with a company. Has now, given this new research and your findings, has that changed how you perhaps would have helped with formulating that product? Like, do you feel like you would have done things differently knowing what you know now?
Which probiotic products? I don't remember being associated with a live probiotic product. I have a gut health product.
I think it was a good health. Yes.
Yeah, but I did not. That was just herbal stuff and prebiotic plant fibers and that kind of stuff. Chamomile, marshmallow, you know, for mild gut issues. But I also had a heavier kind of a product, which I have to be careful when I make my claims. I'm being told, but I'm just going to say it anyway. I have a Gut Pro product. I have that I was showing last year. That is for dogs with IBS, IBD, and that has got additions to it like boswellia for pain relief and this DAO enzyme, which is it's really interesting because that enzyme is released by your actual gut lining, not your pancreas. So when your gut lining is hammered by inflammation, inflammatory bowel disease or colitis, you don't produce any of this DAO enzyme, and DAO enzyme breaks down the histamine in the gut. So when you get inflammation, you get onto this horrible wheel where the inflammation reduces the amount of enzyme that you can produce. So the histamine builds, which aggravates the IBD, just one of the many complicated bits of IBD. So that Gut Pro product is probably what you're talking about. But even then I didn't. Now I've actually added in a type of probiotic called S. boulardii, which a lot of people would know about, but that's actually a yeast. Instead of a bacteria, it's an actual yeast. And that's cool. It's pretty much the only probiotic I use today is S. boulardii. I would not, as of now anyway, I wouldn't associate with a bacterial probiotic product now because I've lost all faith in I don't know. Like this lady that another she was a professor, like a skin flora professor in the UK in Manchester University, I think it was. And Kathy's just, and I asked her a question about the gut flora. She goes, "Oh, I don't know anything about the gut flora." And I'm like, "Oh, give me a break. You're a professor of skin flora. You probably know more about the gut flora than I do." And she goes, "No, I really don't. It's a complete just dark world." And she goes, I know enough to know I don't have a clue what's going on in there. And so she's upset. She just changed things for me. Anyway, as of this moment, no, I definitely wouldn't. This is actually part of my problem. I had a product there called Oculus Prime, which was for weepy eyes. And I've kind of, you won't see me. Yeah, isn't it a great name? Yeah. Probably get you in trouble in some places, but you just keep your head down and, you know, beg for forgiveness.
Go with it.
So this product is great, but the product was a focus on anti-inflammation. So it's like, oh, you have weepy eyes, so you pump in anti-inflammatory and it'll cool off the weepiness from the eyes. And now, once I realized 2 years ago, and my business partner was delighted for me to say this to him, now I realize that like the weepy eyes and all symptoms from sore ears, particularly ears, you know, bad skin and weepy eyes and arthritis, anything, they're symptoms. They're bio indicators all is not well. And just smashing a load of anti-inflammatory is never going to get to the bottom of why were those eyes weepy in the first place. Mm-hmm. So as of 2 years ago, I stopped promoting Oculus Prime. I just said, you know what, I am pushing the message saying, guys, don't just don't just put a plaster on gangrene. When an issue pops up, don't just, you know, the quarterback he's getting a rusty arm, he's got arthritis in his shoulder from just so many of the same plays, and we'll just inject him with anti-inflammatories, out you go again and do it again. The pain is there to tell you to stop using the arm, and the anti-inflammatories now allow you to aggravate that injury no end, you know. So me using inflammation on weepy eyes is the same thing, and I keep telling people not to keep just relying on supplements and piling them in for gut conditions. It's like, why has your dog got the gut condition? That's the key to fixing them. Otherwise, you're just stuck in this loop of supplementation and repression. And so in answer to your question again to the probiotics, I could never associate with a bacterial probiotic product now, because I just have lost complete faith in them, as hopefully by the end of this talk. And sorry to anybody that's selling probiotic products. I always feel bad because sometimes there's exhibitors there and I will always talk to them beforehand. I love small business, but it's just what it is. I do it to myself. I shoot my own products down when I realize, as I did Oculus Prime, and I'm just going to say what I find, and and that's just the way it is. So yeah, I wouldn't in the future. I just wouldn't be able to, because I have to stick to what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think that's it's very humble of you to say I was wrong, or I didn't know, or I learned something else, and
whoops. All that stuff I was saying previously, ignore that. Now I'm saying this. So look, it's going to happen. I talk a lot of stuff. You're not going to hit it not 100% of the time. But the great thing about being an honest broker of information, which is you and me and everybody I seem to pal around with these days in our little gang. The great thing about being an honest broker of information is it is no sweat turning around saying you're wrong. It's not embarrassing. It's not sore. It's not painful. There's no real ego. It's like, oh, right. Okay, that's interesting. Sorry, guys. And then everyone goes, thanks for directing us the right way. Whereas if you're not an honest broker of information, there's a lot of threat from admitting you're wrong about something. But I don't have that. And the people I respect and love in this industry don't have it either. It's great. It's the best conversations at a table. You can sit there and debate the hell out of it with you. You start saying something, I don't agree with that, Ruby, because here's this and this. And you have it out and you go, one of us is going to, maybe not. But, the conversation is much easier than when people are at a table with a bit of ego and I need to be right about this because this is my thing. I'm a thing. I'm this person that believes this. So I'm not like that at all. I don't get on with people that think that way.
Yeah, but that's the nature of science, right? And studies, and why we have to keep doing all of this research, because we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. It's just that's it. And one study, like I always tell people, my doctorate, it was looking at why. I was looking at the digestive morphology of male and female deer, wondering if the shape of their guts and their diet. So we looked at their diet and their poo and the shape of their guts all through the year. It was a pretty horrible project. Nobody wanted to do it, but they guaranteed they'd get me out in less than 4 years if I did do it. And I did. And anyway, the point was the simple question was, why do male and female deer live separately during the year? Because group living animals should live together, and then you'd have more hope. If there's a predator coming, you kick one of the females towards it, and you'll be safe as a big strong male. So why do the males live separately to the females? And they're one of the only group living animals to do it. I tell people that, and so what did your project find? And I said, well, it wasn't the diet. And they went, is that it? I'm like, yeah. Like it was. People think, is that not a bit of a failure? It's like, well, no, because we now know one thing it isn't.
Yeah, what it's not.
And it's, if people don't get it, but you're trying to tell them, no, it's the training that the project gives you, how to explore a question. Like I have this. I'm sure I have undiagnosed ADHD, and everybody that knows me goes, well, yeah. Well, nobody told me that. I'm after coming to this conclusion myself as a 45-year-old man, and it's chronic. So if I wasn't in this industry, I'd be doomed. But my chronic ADHD and now my training with the PhD enables me to look at a question from all angles. I don't care who's saying that, who says that, what's all the research for what's your research for your position, what are your points, what are your facts? This guy's got none, gone. I can't do anything with that one. And you look at it from all angles, and it's easier rather than coming at it with a preconception of, I need to be right about my point on this. So that's why I have this exhaustive way of looking at questions, because that's the training that the doctor gives you. It enables you to come up with questions, sometimes some answers, but most of the time just more questions, which is useful sometimes.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if you recall, a few months ago, I reached out to you asking why you didn't list chicken feet or poultry feet as a raw meaty bone to include in the diet. And really the reason is because we had been recommending this as a source of calcium for the longest time. And then I was like, there's something wrong here. And so I reached out to you, and, we tried to find as many studies as possible to cover it, and there just weren't any.
Yeah.
It didn't exist, but, we did our research. We found actually some human studies that, came out with.
It was you.
It was me.
Did you see my post today? Yesterday.
I didn't.
Today. Oh my God. I can't believe you're saying this and you haven't seen my post. It was this post about chicken feet. Oh my God, I can't believe it. I thought this was a setup. Because maybe I said in the comments, I said somebody was going on to me a while ago about chicken feet. And I have to admit, I was quietly skeptical going, of all pieces of the bird, seeing your dog walk around with a chicken foot, it's like gross. Surely eat something else off the bird. Well, I did a post today about free joint supplement, which outcompetes glucosamine and chondroitin and MSM. And I said it's free. You can get it everywhere and it's free. And it's called UC, capital U, capital C /2, two big I's, like World War II. And so UC2. And I talk about here's the study and here's why it's amazing. They reckon it's immunomodulating. It gets to the gut membrane and tells the immune system to do something I poorly understand. And it's awesome for joints. And I get down and I set the scene. And by the end of it, people are begging, where can I get this UC2, Conor? How much money can I give you? And I said, and you can't give me any money because it's free. And it comes from raw, meaty bones. It's cartilage. It's unprocessed cartilage. And the best bits is in gristle and collagen. And it's undenatured, that's what the U stands for, undenatured collagen type 2. There's about 6 collagen. Guess what's a rich source of unprocessed? There you go, chicken feet.
Yeah.
And so like, I was just so annoyed because just people were commenting underneath and they kept on asking about which feet. And I said anyone's foot will do because it's just a gristly part of the animal. But particularly poultry feet is so. All the people going on about poultry feet were probably right. It doesn't mean you need to eat kilos of poultry feet every day. It's like it's a treat now and again, but that is a great source. But if you powder it, it loses its undenatured. If you cook it, people say broth is a great form of collagen, and it is type 1 collagen, but type 2 collagen is in the cartilage. And if it's undenatured, so the dog eats lumps of it, all the better for the dog. So how interesting that the bone also gives all the glucosamine your dog needs, all the chondroitin and hyaluronic acid and glucosamine, and it gives all that, but it also gives this cool. And I just thought how cool that raw bones do. It's like Mother Nature knew. So it's pretty cool. And it lends support to there's a phenomenal writer. Her name is Catherine Shannon, a US medic, US doctor, mad into nutrition. She wrote Deep Nutrition. She wrote some other really famous book that turned the NFL stuff around. She got in there and wrote a book for them. It's really famous. Can't remember the name. But Deep Nutrition was one she wrote 5 or 6 years ago. I highly recommend any nutrition nerds to listen to it on a podcast. It's got 4 main sections to it. And it's quite simple. She just says, here is the science behind why you need to have more organ meats in your diet. Here is the science why you need more bones in your diet. It's like it was written for a dog owner, raw feeding dog owner. And the bone stuff was just so obvious. You know, I was 10 years a vegetarian and I had 3 knee operations. The last one, which finally took me out of football, I was walking out and the surgeon says, you're just not doing what I'm telling you to do. And the knee keeps going. And so I'm in tears. That's the end of you in football. And on the way out, he said, tell me, what are you eating? And I said, you know, you don't need to tell me anything. I'm actually a nutritionist. So, you know, and he goes, you're not a bloody vegetarian, are you? And I was at the time. I was making raw dog food as a vegetarian. And I said, I am actually. He goes, where do you get all your glucosamine and chondroitin from? And I was like, ooh. And like, this is what I tell pet owners every single day. You've got like, if you cut this stuff out of a young dog's life, they're going to be walking around like a coffee table by 8 years of age. And then you'll be sold the solution, which is ground up cartilage in a capsule for $1 a pop. And so you can't just cut out these joint building blocks, glucosamine, chondroitin, collagen, you know, of all the different types and good quality fats and D3 and all this cool stuff that you need to make joints. You can't just cut all that out and expect joints to be well. You will have structural issues that will cause joint issues. So it was quite a learning curve for me to kind of turn around and go, bloody hell, I didn't apply one of those principles to myself. I was doing all the exercise. I was in good condition at the time.
What was the injury?
ACL. It started with an ACL, but then as it keeps going, you start ripping the cartilage out. Then the last one was a Donahue triad where all 3 are torn. So it was like just a mess of a knee now. And he said, all the exercises you were doing, you were never giving your knee a chance. You weren't giving it the building blocks. And so, it's just another damage, another shot to the ego that was. But Catherine Shannon, I was listening to the book probably at the time, and I still wasn't putting 2 and 2 together until something terrible happens to me, and then you go, oh no, how obvious, you know. But there you go. That poor old dry-fed dogs don't get any of those compounds, and you wonder why so many middle-aged dogs are, arthritic, and the obesity doesn't help them either. So it's a joint issues are a serious problem for those doggos, but not for raw-fed dogs. We're fine.
Yeah. So keep the chicken feed in the diet, but what we did find is that they don't have enough calcium to justify using them as the sole raw meaty bone. So even though you didn't have that listed in your book for that reason, we did figure that out. And then we had to go back and change every single article that we mentioned it.
Yeah.
So just goes to
What
show.
sort of bones? What sort of bones are in a chicken foot? Is there actual little bits of bones, or is it just all like a collagen-y thing with the
Yeah,
nail?
there are bits of bones, but the
They have
ratio of
toe,
calcium to phosphorus is much lower than, say, a
not a
wing
serious
or
bone.
a thigh, right? So then you have to feed more chicken feet to meet those calcium
Yeah.
requirements, and then you throw everything else off.
Yeah,
So
tough old
yeah,
meal.
I was
Yeah.
wrong, and I was wrong
Yeah.
for years. And so then
Yeah.
I had
There
to
you
go
go.
back and change everything. But
Yeah. I had a piece in a cancer article, and a lady sends me an email saying, "Heads up, Connor, there's a piece in your cancer article that's just completely wrong. And you suggest that by taking off the testicles of a dog, that it can." I'm trying to defend, like trying to not neuter dogs is the whole thing we've all been talking about for 10 years.
Yeah.
But I accidentally said, of course, if you take off the testicles of a dog, he's going to not get testicular cancer. I said, that makes sense. And I said, it also would reduce prostate cancer. And he goes, why would you think taking testicles off would reduce prostate cancer? And as soon as she said it, I thought, oh no, why did I say that? And she goes, the study showed the exact opposite. And I was like, so these little things, you know, when you write this enormous article on neutering in pets, like it's, you know how it is. I mean, yourself and Kay there just putting out these cool articles, and but it takes so long to put that stuff down. And then invariably, when you talk a lot of facts now and again, everyone's so switched on now, you can be quickly undressed. And but that's a good thing, and you learn, you know. But often when we're talking to these crowds, when I talk to when I get to Feed Real in San Diego now, the crowd is so switched on, it forces you to really, there's no more mediocre talks, there's no more how to feed raw, here's how to make dog treats. It just doesn't happen anymore. Now it's just this solid, you know, highbrow talk that you wouldn't give to most conventional vet talks that we do. You know, they just, it'll be before that for the vets. For the guys listening, they're just absolute nerds of the highest order, and they want it. They want the facts hard and fast, you know.
You got to be on your toes, because once we have that Q&A also afterwards, it's like,
your cartilage collagen-y toes. Yeah, there you go.
Well, I want to circle back to probiotics and these questions at the end, but let's move on to the raw and dry fed study. I mean, this is something that you've been working on for a couple of years now, if not more. For people in our audience who haven't heard of us, can you just sort of do a quick rundown of the study and what you're covering?
Yeah, this study came to fruition about 2 years ago. So we did a fundraise, and we got about 50,000 bucks together, which is very cheap for a study, guys, let me tell you. And we got that money together because our aim was, very simply, to get into Wiley's Veterinary Clinic, Wylies, funny name, Wiley's Veterinary Clinic. And they're in the UK, phenomenal veterinary institution with about maybe 30, 35 all raw feeding vets working for them, big group. And they were just saying the same things that all raw feeding or natural vets were saying, which is, well, we just don't see any bloat anymore. Kidney disease in cats is gone. You know, of course, you're going to get bits now and again that will pop up in the population, but it's just not endemic. You know, the body condition of these dogs is way better, and on and on and on. And the pancreatitis, thing of the past, but the bloat was the big one that really bothered me because a friend's dog had just died of it. So what I had mentioned that in my talk, and an interesting thing that Wiley's did was they created their own healthcare plan. And what they said was, you pay us a certain amount of money each month, and we will keep your dog healthy. So it's in our interest to keep the dog healthy, because if you get sick, you're going to bother us more and consume our vet's times, and it'll cost us money. And so they reversed the whole health paradigm, the whole doctor-patient health paradigm. So if you don't get better, you just keep on going back down to the same GP. People just keep going to the same doctor, more meds, as if a mechanic can just keep working with a broken car and you just keep going back to him. You'd never do that. It's like, the car is not working, bud. What's happened? I paid you all this money. So that's the way medicine used to be in China. It used to be that you paid them while you were healthy, and if you got sick, you stopped paying them. So it was in their interest to keep you healthy. Now, you might argue, it's in the industry's interest to keep you sick, not the GP. They care about you, but the industry above it, they like selling stuff. Anyway, the Wiley Veterinary Clinic have this healthcare plan, and they want people on it. And they said, you can't be, if to come on this healthcare plan, we want to keep you as healthy as possible. So that means you can't be feeding dry food. Instantly, you can't be feeding dry food. You can't be given don't be overzealous with the flea treatment, the wormers, no annual vaccinations. all gone. All the stuff we've been talking about and pushing and saying, they said, yeah, no, don't do any of that because we're trying to keep you as healthy. Isn't that strange? All these products we were told to feed. But if to be the healthiest and cheapest on a healthcare plan for a veterinary hospital, they have 2 big hospitals to do this. The idea was, well, we'll manage all that, but you've got to be on the raw and that kind of stuff. So it was a wonderful healthcare plan, a great little bit to put in my book. And it worked. Then I thought, hey guys, you're keeping notes. What information do you have on dogs? You should see how poor IDEX, I think is the name of the thing they use. There's 2 or 3. They have this industry sewn up. There's only 2 or 3 companies in the world that give the computer systems of vets. And it's essentially like a giant Excel spreadsheet, and not even as good as an Excel spreadsheet. You can't even search. It's so enormously complicated and horrible that it's hard to write. It's not like a tick box thing. So, for example, even recording the dog's body condition score, but there was no box for nutrition. There's like, they don't know what their patients are eating. And so why these?
It was probably just like boxes of text and notes from each.
As opposed to exactly, that's what it was. It was like an extra note. Anything else you want to say about the dog? It's like, well, a huge thing is if he's kibbled or canned or raw fed, particularly if he's coming in with chronic gut conditions or inflammation or all these other things we know raw helps with. Studies show reduces ear, skin, and gut conditions. So Wiley's then just started recording if the dogs were raw fed. Didn't mention if they were kibbled or can fed, but that is gold data because the data is already being collected, and now we have dogs on a healthcare plan who are really well looked after, and their diet is recorded and any disease. So my idea was that, hey, let's compare all the raw fed dogs you have on file to the dry fed dogs. How often does a raw-fed dog go to the vets, for example? We already have an idea what the answer is to that. You're going to let me show a slide later on to back that up. But if raw feeding, and it does, reduces inflammation, lots of studies to back that one up, histamine release in the skin, as well as skin conditions, ear conditions, gut conditions, 3 separate studies, 2 of them published in Nature. They're the top 1, 2, and 3 reasons for visiting the vet today. So if that's the case, wouldn't they use the vets less? And Brisbane guide dogs changed 220 dry-fed dogs to raw-fed dogs, and their veterinary bills fell by 82%. So that is a lot less vet needed when you are feeding the real stuff to pets. They are facts. They are cold, hard facts. There's no data showing feeding dry food does the opposite. Not a single study. They'll just argue and confuse and talk about other things, but they won't talk about those critical points. So if we compare raw-fed and dry-fed dogs in one veterinary hospital, we should know the answer. The same way if you compare vaccinated and unvaccinated kids or whatever your thing is, let's just see the data then. Let's compare it. The doctors have the data. It's funny that GPs today give their monthly sales figures, drug sales figures, to the drug companies, but we, the public, don't get the monthly side effect literature or, how these drugs are working or not working. We don't get any of that. It's just the sales figures. Isn't that weird? Why would they just be giving them the sales figures? So I think that every vet in the world, my idea was that if we got this study off the ground and compared, and we're already seeing what you're expecting to see. So it was bits and pieces and some surprising bits as well. But the data size is never big enough, but it's 150 raw-fed dogs, about 600 dry-fed dogs predominantly. So my idea with that would be that every vet goes, hey, I do wonder what my raw-fed dogs versus my dry-fed dogs look like. How often do they come to the vets? How much antibiotics do they use? How much do they cost each year? Because it's all written down how much each thing costs. So if it costs 3 times more to own a dry-fed dog, and I bet you it does, then, that's a great one for shifting the market, because the market at the end of the day doesn't give a shit about studies. They don't care about science. They just need to hear the word safe and effective a million times. It's, okay, I'll wear this mask. So we don't really care what the studies say. It's really the emotional response to it, and the very quickest way to convince people emotionally is to say dry-fed dogs cost 3 times more, or see the vets twice as much. We know dry-fed dogs go to the vets more. We've already got the study to show that. It's only surveys, but it was produced by a pro-kibble person. So it's that's why we're doing the study now. Unfortunately, our lead researchers had a bit of an issue at the start, and it just delayed us a little bit. But on top of that, it turns out this stupid software is impossible to use, and so you can't actually dig out the data as easily as we thought we could. So it's a very manual job where Vicky has to get in there for each dog, write down each little bit, pull out the disease information. It's so ridiculously laborious, and she's got hundreds of dogs to do. It's just horrible, and you can't just lock a few master students in a room with a load of pot noodles or whatever you feed students over there.
Can't do that anymore.
No, sadly, hit them with sticks, but it's not gonna happen. So we just didn't collect enough money. You collect 50,000 bucks, you've nailed that to the door. So it means that Vicky just has to put in a ferocious amount of hours that she didn't allow for. But this is the real side of science. Science is tricky. It's never quite what you expect. It's always longer than you expect. It's not all Nobel Prizes. And it's hard. And so when people are wondering why studies don't get done, it's because they're expensive, they're laborious. You need serious data. If we had to collect that data, we would have been doomed. So it's just, the problem was the software that ruined it for us. Otherwise it would have been nice and quick. So, but it's a lesson learned. And hopefully if we tweak the software when we're finished, we've been talking to the manufacturers of it and said, you know what, if you just get presented the information like this, we could search it and then we'd have unbelievable studies coming out. So we wouldn't have to rely on the piecemeal bits of information we're fed from Wasava and AFCO and Banfield, who are owned by Mars now. These people are giving out information that suits their agenda. They're not giving out the real information. If dry-fed dogs are so healthy, let's see a dry v raw-fed dog study where the dry-fed dogs came out better, because all we have is a plethora showing the opposite is the case. Let's see that data if you have it. You've got millions of dogs on file, but they don't show you that data because it doesn't suit them,
Can you share anything from the surprising things that you found out?
No, can't. I'm not allowed. Yeah. There's a rule. Honest to God, there's a rule where you're only allowed to produce a 250-word poster on this study. But Vicky's still in her infancy doing it. There's a website called experiment.com. And you can type in raw fed dogs or raw dog food, and you'll see the study there, and you'll see all my lab notes. I pop up a note every couple of months to tell people where we are. But we had a serious delay there for very serious reasons we don't need to get into, but it's unavoidable and it was tragic. So, but now we're getting back on track, and but it's slow. But we'll need a few months before we can even start telling people, because you don't announce something and then suddenly the data turns around and goes, oh, that's not actually what we found. Yeah. You can look at the study. So I have to be very careful. So I've been told no giving details until she's ready and the data says what it said. You need to publish it as well. So there's rules about if you've released the information beforehand, all sorts of stuff that I didn't understand. So she does all that. So all that, I raised the money and did the singing and dancing to get the attention on it. And Vicky's doing all the work. The poor thing, it's on her. So she's a veterinary epidemiologist. She is of the highest caliber. So she's
amazing. I met her when we were out there in the UK a couple of years ago for the natural dog event, I think it was called. Yeah. All right. Well, we will wait and keep us posted
absolutely.
And if there's anything that our audience can do to support you, let us know. Are you thinking about doing another fundraiser to
no, we're not going to raise any more money. We're going to get this done. We do what we said we were going to do. But I had an idea where you'd have this platform, citizen science, and it's like studies that we want. Like, this is how the breast versus bottled milk debate got put to bed. It was a French couple in the 70s who were taking on Nestle and having serious trouble. But to get that put to bed with the project, once the product is on the market, like dry food, once the product gets on the market, the good science has to be produced by you, the consumer, which is ironic, isn't it? It's like, their ridiculous, nonsensical study that they produced themselves that you can show is littered with holes. Doesn't matter. It's on the market. For you to get that off the market and beat their lawyers in court, you need to convince a judge with oodles of the highest quality science, which requires high quality researchers, lots of time, and loads of money. Where does the public get loads of money? We aren't Nestle. We're not Mars. They have loads of money because they sell wheat and corn and call it, complete food. So that's a high margin, very profitable industry. We're the public. So trying to raise money, trying to get that 50,000 bucks is hard. So my hopes and dreams of producing loads of these studies kind of went out the window a little bit, because raising money is hard.
Well, and essentially you're trying to disprove nature.
Yeah, right.
Am I saying that right?
You are trying to disprove. Trying to disprove something is really difficult. Trying to prove something, is as easy as having 8 caged dogs in a box, apparently, and you feed them food for 6 months, and now the food is complete and balanced for life. The proof stuff it seems to be, unfortunately for us, you need very little to get a product on the market proof-wise. But really look how hard it was to get rid of cigarettes. Look how hard that was.
Yeah.
And they set the bar for all the nonsense we see today. If you show a study about something and people don't agree, they'll say correlation does not equal causation. They love saying that. They don't understand that phrase was used and came into existence because of the tobacco companies, and they pushed that hard. So anytime there is a massive correlation, such as serious adverse events from mRNA jobs when they came out, and the VAERS reports are exploding off, they'll say, "Oh, correlation isn't causation," and it's like, fair. Like, it is true, but these are the sort of insidious little things that slip into conscious. And when people don't do science, they can throw those terms around and use them. And it means when you are trying to prove something real, you have to come up with some serious science, which unfortunately for us, like the kibble industry, don't have to produce it. They don't have to show that high carbohydrate diets are not what you would recommend for cancer, but they still recommend them. Now, it's so obvious that that's not what you do. We know that high carbohydrate diets are worse for pancreatitis, but they still feed them. It's just you don't lower protein in early stage.
But it's a prescription diet.
Oh, it's a prescription, which is odious because even a sweet shop can sell it. So it's not a prescription. Like, they don't need any science. They'll drop the protein in their dry food if they wish. They'll sell everything that we know scientifically is utter nonsense. But they'll do it. And for us to get that product off the market, good luck, buddy, producing enough studies. There'll never be enough dogs used. It'll just So that's the tricky bit of science that makes you lose a bit of heart, because there's a lot of bad science out there, which is cheap and easy to produce for these guys, and it's there's a reason pharmaceutical companies spend 20 times more on marketing and than they do on researching new products, because that generates more cash. If creating new products generated more cash, it'd be 20 to 1 the other way on creating new products. They do that on buying regulators and paying off the journals and all that and producing these ridiculous little studies, because that's what's profitable for them. So people don't understand that end, and it sounds conspiratorial, but when you're in it and you're trying to produce a study, when this study comes out, they'll just bat it off. Oh, what, there was only 150 dogs, please. And that's what they do.
No, so we're gonna blast it.
That's what you can do for us. That's what you can do.
All right, we got you. Well, so what can you share with us? Have you come across any other interesting studies?
No, let me show this slide here. This is an interesting study that came out recently. The industry, as much as I like, that was fluid, very nice, Ruby, good job. So the industry puts out these studies. Okay, the veterinary departments are they're all in bed with the dry food manufacturers, and they put out these studies. They always say, the benefits and dangers of raw food. There's never the benefits and dangers of kibble. You won't see that study ever done, even though kibble clearly kills tens of thousands of cats and dogs, and less than 10 cats and dogs have been killed by complete raw dog food, or 140 people that picked up salmonella in the last 20 years from pet food have all been dry fed dogs, not from raw food, and 7 kids under the age of 2 in the last year that CDC announced. 6 different states, 7 kids in 6 different states, all from kibble, putting their hands into the bag of kibble and getting salmonella. Didn't seem to make the top of the front page of the Veterinary Times or any of that for some strange reason. But anyway, look, the dangers and benefits of raw, and they always do this, and they'll do the benefits of raw, and they'll say, some people say that the dogs get a nice coat and the poops are a little bit better, but here are the dangers, and then the dangers section is about 20 pages long. That's the game, and they produce these studies relentlessly, so when they write their papers, they can say authors show that there is many dangers to raw, and then they can cite all these studies, bum, 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 bum. But it's not like they compared, or they looked at raw fed dogs and looked at the owners that were poisoned and found that the raw food, there's no measurements done. There's no dogs getting sick from eating raw or their legs falling off, or, there's nothing like that. It's just all these ridiculous summation pieces that they do so scientists or the vets feel like they've got this warm hug of science. Look at all the science, but they don't actually read it. They don't understand it. They just trust it. This is the first time that the guys put out a study and almost admitted that there is quite a lot of studies showing benefit. They almost did it. They couldn't quite do it. But I love this first paragraph, because check out these figures. Never would have thought this 5 years ago. And this is the dry food industry saying this. Raw pet food sales have increased by at least 15% annually in recent years, and approximately 10% of cats and up to 25% of dogs are currently fed raw meat. This is across UK, Ireland, Canada, picking out different countries. From 2008 to 2018, the proportion of raw feeding rose from 10 to 50%, Other surveys reported proportions ranging from 37 to 50% of pets eating fresh food. It's like these are amazing figures. You never would have thought you'd see these figures reported in a dry food literature. The increased prevalence of feeding raw meaty bone diets has become an unstoppable trend. I love saying that. Obviously, I put in the red there to make myself sound dramatic. Can I go on to the next slide?
Oh, yeah,
I can. Cool. Yeah. And then for the first time ever, I'm not going to read out all this, but for the first time ever, they do actually list some of the benefits of feeding raw meaty bone diets and healthy body weight, which is a fact. With the more protein you feed, the better the body weight and condition. Improved stool quality, fact. These are all, look at all those studies that they seem to ignore. They may elicit anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects. Absolutely, 2 or 3 studies showing that. And there's 4 or 5 they've put after. Like, this is lovely. Look at all these studies backing up how important it is. And this is when these are case controlled studies. So they get a group of dogs fed dry and a group of dogs fed raw, and they switch their diets and measure them. They're proper studies. And raw wins every single time, bar the one study produced by Purina. And you can, anyway, look, bar one strange little study out there. Anyway,
who is the studies that are cited? Do you know who?
You know the studies. Yourself and Kay, and like, you've used these studies in your articles. They're not going to be groundbreaking to you. Now, if a vet actually explored that, they won't click those studies. No way. But they exist, and you know them. It'll be like dog risk in Helsinki University, where they got 20 dogs fed dry food and 20 dogs fed raw food, and they looked at their bloods and said they looked for homocysteine, an inflammatory marker, and they found that dry fed dogs have 10 times the level of homocysteine. You don't want it. You want as little of that as possible in your blood than the raw fed dogs do. And what they did was they then swapped their diets and they measured their bloods again. And when they swapped their diets, the raw fed dogs, the level of homocysteine rose by a factor of 5 times higher. The homocysteine went. For the dry fed dogs, it fell by a factor of 5. So these are great. That would just be one of those studies. Dog risk showed that they have more histamine. The genes change in the skin. They have more histamine release, which means you're going to get itchier skin. A third study they produced showed they had less atopy. A fourth study, less ear disease. A fifth study published in Nature, less gut disease. So they're the studies that are in there. You know these studies, but so they mention these few studies, and then we'll always say at the bottom here, however, the current research is insufficient to provide a comprehensive nutritional understanding. Further research is needed. That old gem. Further research is needed before we will shift off this ridiculous high carbohydrate kibble that has not got a single study of value showing us of any benefit at all to a dog or cat. There's no studies saying the more carbohydrates you feed a dog or cat, the better they do. The cleaner the teeth, the leaner they are, the less cancer they get, less kidney disease, less pancreatitis. Like all the things, less ear disease, less gut disease. There is no study showing kibble is beneficial to a dog or cat for anything. But more research is needed by us before we will even consider thinking fresh food is important for a dog or a cat. It is such bullshit of the highest. This is just exactly what you will never produce enough research for someone whose position is taken in dogma. Their position isn't taken in science. If it was, we'd be talking science and they would have jumped over to our side straight away. But if you're in dogma, like we said at the start of this talk, coming in a nice full circle here, if you aren't selling the truth for a living, and you are not doing your research, and you aren't digging into those bits that aren't right about the stuff you're selling in your practice, you are going to get very hooked on. My ego, my mortgage, my whole raison d'etre is saying kibble is good. And if I turn around and start saying fresh food is bad, I'm going to look like a dick. And that's just too much for people. It's too much for people to turn around and admit it. So they're the sort of studies that come out. And this is why our study is so important. You need to come out. You need to give a bit more research. But to be honest, it's not the game I want to play. Look how many people Rodney Abib and Becker are changing. They're millions. They have more followers than Beyonce. Millions and millions of people reading their books. Oh, well, I don't know. If you add the two of them together, 8 million followers. Does Beyonce have more than 8 million followers on Instagram?
I mean, I would think so, but it's still
possibly
very impressive.
I should have said somebody else. I didn't know somebody smaller. But anyway, and then they say, however, the majority of these studies remain largely anecdotal, bullshit. They're all peer-reviewed, opinion-based, bullshit, hypothetical, nonsense, lacking robust scientific support. It's just nonsense words they put in just to make everybody feel bad. That was the homocysteine study, and who knows why. Less inflammation, less skin, less ear disease. I just want to get to this last slide. These are all the studies. This is what we have studies to back up. Less inflammation, skin, gut disease. Raw-fed diets are better digested, improving stool quality, and you absorb more nutrients from it. Improve coat and teeth scores. Well, that's important, surely. Lowers cholesterol and blood triglycerides, less fat in the blood. So if you're worried about pancreatitis, you got to feed protein and fat, not carbohydrates. Adding colored veg, reduce cancer. 247 German Shepherds, less chronic hip dysplasia, better weight loss, kidney function, and reduced tumor growth, and the more protein you feed the animals. Zero injury in sled dogs fed raw meat over a whole season. Maximum injury, the more carbohydrates you feed. The more carbohydrates you feed, the more injuries they got. That's a proper study. Put these dogs on a travelator and give them something to do, and then measure the amount of smoke coming out the exhaust. There are studies that you want to see. Fresh-fed dogs are calmer. That's the first opinion one. Studies show they love it. What happened? Dogs loving it. Every single study shows a dog will take a bit of sausage over a pile of kibble. They'll work harder, work longer. They love meat. What happened? Dogs just enjoying the food. What are you spending your money on? They don't want to eat poxy porridge every day. It's just prison food. You know, when you could be eating steak. This is what I wanted to show. Sorry, I'm going off on one here. Better health scores when there was coming. Listen to this. That top graph was, I did a survey, and people go, it's just a survey on a raw feeding website. And so I asked on dogs first on my Facebook page. I said, hey guys, who's feeding dry and who's feeding raw, and how many times have you been to the vet in the last year? Okay, so in the last year, how many times have you been to the vet? 1,600 people responded to my survey. And that top graph, I'm pointing out with my little cursor, but you can't see that, but that top graph shows that more raw-fed dogs, and that first bit in the top left, more raw-fed dogs haven't been to the vet than dry-fed dogs. A considerable difference. Over 50% have never been to the vet in the year, and that's much smaller in dry-fed dogs. And then have been once, the raw-fed dogs, ever so slightly higher than the dry-fed dogs, and have been more than once, the dry-fed dogs, nearly double as much. So I'm thinking, oh, that's interesting, isn't it? And 98% of people go, oh my God, so great. That was, I raw feed and the fresh food, we're for the win. And then 2% of people, I hate you, I hope you die. This is just a survey, and you're just pushing an agenda to sell your book and all this sort of stuff. It's like, okay, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And then Knight et al. In 2022, these guys are vegans, and they promote vegan kibble. They work for the vegan lobby, and this was paid for by Big Veg, this study. And Knight was doing a survey of vegans, and he was asking vegans, do they think their dogs live longer? And the vegans said they do. And they published that study. They said 2,300 people were asked, but there was only just over 100 vegans actually asked. The rest were all different types of feeders. And they published that, and they made the front page of the Vet Times. Feeding vegetarian diets to dogs may help them live 2 years longer. Front page of the Veterinary Times. It was a survey of a couple of hundred or 100 vegans who, what do you think they're going to say? Nobody's going to say, no, my life choices that I'm putting on the dog's actually killing them. But, hey, go veg. You're never going to say that. You're going to say, oh, he's awesome. He's got grown an extra leg and he can jump over a bus. Anyway, in amongst Knight's graphs and stuff he produced, check out that bottom graph. He asked, this is raw kibble dogs, dry-fed animals. This is both normal kibble and vegan kibble, which is virtually identical, by the way, just because it has a 4 or 5% beef bone meal. That's your meat addition. And compared to vegan, that is vegan food. A cow's toenail, 5% cow's toenail, does not make it a meat-based diet, but he calls it a meat-based diet because he's a vegan. He thinks that's what a meat-based diet is. So anyway, in here is vegan and practically vegan kibble on the left. Sorry, I'm pointing to it. On the bottom left graph there is the kibble, and on the right and it's, look at that, it's virtually identical to what my survey said.
Same questions.
So raw-fed dogs are twice as likely not to see the vet in a year, and at the bottom right there you see that larger bar, whereas dry-fed dogs are going to see the vet way more than once than raw-fed dogs. This was the start of the study. We just thought, bloody hell. Look at these differences, just as we expected. It reduces skin, ear, gut conditions, inflammation, which are the top 3 reasons for visiting the vet. And when you look at the data, they are seeing the vet less. So how many more of these studies do we have to produce? Like, this is just a survey by Knight, but so very, very interesting stuff. And I bet if the vets got together and had a look at their data, it would say the exact same thing. So here's hoping there's a few raw feeding vets out there with really tight grasp of their data and can really start producing a social media post that looks like that is way more effective than any study, sadly, today. That's
what you would think the results of this study for this vegan kibble company is that well, maybe we should be making a vegan raw food. But the thing is, dogs are not going to touch a vegan raw food. No way.
Yeah, you can starve them. You can put me back now. Actually, I'm done there. You can starve them into it, and they will eat it. But yeah. So like, it's just so much of this little stuff around. But like, you need an hour's chat like this just to touch the sides of the conversation. And same with San Diego, same with the conference. Like, you need to sit there and absorb it for 6-8 hours before you even hear what is going on, because otherwise you're just touching off it on social media and getting a 10-second clip on Instagram and a 60-second reel, but you don't really know what's going. So, but the information is sometimes laborious. So like, it takes particular people like you and me and Amy and not Amy. What's your Kay and nerds that just love. See, like, everyone leaves the house and you get a glass of wine and you just put on your laptop and you work. Like, some people don't have that with their job. They don't love their job. But that for me is the happiest I can put. That's my tail is wagging furiously for 8 hours in a row. If I could just sit there 10, 12 hours, I'll sit there digging up some fact about rabbit poo. It's like, oh, this might be why dogs are eating it. You know what I mean? And then you post it out there and someone just shoots it down. It's like, oh, it probably isn't actually, But I just love going down a rabbit hole. Just love it,
Yeah. No, well, we're very much looking forward to your talk in October. I want to open up the live for any questions that you guys have, because we covered so much, not just with the raw and dry fed study, but also that one that you just shared right now. Before we do, and so you guys go ahead and drop them on the comments. I want to do something different today. This is actually brand new in what we're doing for all of our speakers that are coming to the summit. I should have probably given you a heads up about this, but you're good. So it's going to be 5 rapid fire questions. Got I'll give you 30 seconds to answer each of them, just whatever comes top of mind. And it's all canine nutrition, longevity related stuff. And while he's answering those, if you guys have any other questions on probiotics, on his talk this October, anything like that, on the study, drop them in the comments and we'll get to it right after this. So here are our Feed Real Summit 25 questions. Got 30 seconds each. What's the biggest myth you hear about dog health?
Oh, that dog health comes from supplements and drugs and that kind of stuff. It does not. The 95% of wellness comes from what you put in there, and the other 5% is probably what's going on in the environment. So absolutely, I believe that the veterinary sector focuses on disease. That's not health. Health is what stops you going into the vets in the first place. It's a completely different realm.
Good answer. And I think that was under 30 seconds.
Not
All
bad.
Right, good. Keep it up. Next question. Can diet or lifestyle override bad genes?
100%. Absolutely positive. And we know that because more than 95% of cancers are now environmental. We used to think it was genetic. We poured money into genetic research. We want to believe it's genetic for all these diseases that are every single chronic disease. Great figures coming out of the US because at least the FDA tracked it, and CDC. We don't have that luxury in Ireland. So as much as we slag off the FDA, they do put out data. All chronic disease going this way, that's not genetic. Genes, it exists in nature like this. That's what the way genetic mishaps come. But when your disease is going up like that, there are environmental factors at play. 100% diet is a massive aggravator. Genes loads the gun, environment pulls the trigger. You can be genetically predisposed to smoking or to lung cancer, but if you smoke, you have got a 1 in 4 chance of getting lung cancer. But if you don't smoke, you probably won't. So, definitely you can load the gun, but epigenetically, it's all about epigenetics, how you flick on and off those genes.
Awesome. What are common signs that a dog is aging faster than normal?
Oh, I've got this with my dog at the moment. He'll slow down a little bit. He'll get, Dud's back is getting a bit sore. He had a back operation when he was a kid, so he's getting a bit snarky now in the park. He doesn't like dogs coming at him from nowhere. His eyes are a little bit cloudy, and his hearing isn't as good as it was. All quite noticeable. I'm shouting out, Dudley, and he just doesn't even know I'm calling him. He gets a fright when you touch his back when he's outside. So he slows down, but I feel sorry for him because his snarkiness is increasing a little bit. He doesn't want people to touch him or move him out of the way because his back is sore. And so I have to be very careful there. So that's a top indicator. Poor behavior. And people say it's poor behavior, you need to train. No, most poor behavior comes from pain. And the way you check that is a little bit of pain relief. And you pop in some pain relief. And if that dog's behavior improved and all you did was add in pain relief, then it's most likely the dog's in pain. And that's a huge driver of poor behavior. So I feel for old dogs, because a hip dysplasia, a bad tooth, that can really creep in, and they don't say anything, they just get grumpy, like most men, Yeah.
Well, if you guys didn't know, Conor was a dog trainer before, and he kind of went through the journey of training behavior and then just deep dive into nutrition.
I loved it. Yeah.
Are there any supplements you wish more pet parents used?
Not really. I'm just, as a guy who sells supplements, I wish you didn't need to use supplements, and I think people lean on them too much. I think the diet can use most of the heavy lifting. You want to give a good quality omega-3, feed sardines, feed sprats. You want good quality joint supplements, feed a muscle, and cartilage and bone. The best supplement is one you don't really need at all. Here's the best supplement advice. You only need a supplement that you're deficient in, bar the anti-inflammatories. When it comes to nutraceuticals and vitamins and minerals and all that kind of stuff, what's the best one of those? The one you're deficient in. And we're very rarely deficient in vitamins and minerals, certainly not raw-fed dogs. So I am just moving away from using them outside of acute injury, really. And I wish people didn't lean on them too heavily. So I can't pick one. If I had to pick one, CBD. I love a bit of CBD. It used to be in the diet. I don't feed too much, just a little bit now and again. Have it in the house. You've got this whole endocannabinoid system. You produce your own endocannabinoids. Actually, that's probably what that system is more for. But I think it's wonderful. And having that in the background is, we are lucky to have something like that around. So I pop in a bit of that now and again. My favorite, by far, nutritional supplement, is the reason all raw dog food is included, is seaweed. So it's just the best all-round plant. Grows in the sea, doesn't want anything, doesn't take up space, full of antioxidants, because it has to live in cold and then warm, and then it's covered with water, then it's in the dry, and salty and not salty. That's a phenomenal animal, eaten, hammered by stones. So it's full of antioxidants and cool things that don't exist above the waves, and it's so nutritious and cheap. So if I was ever, do I cut it myself?
Do you eat seaweed yourself?
I do eat seaweed myself. I eat my own products. I know it sounds like an absolute dupe, but the reason I do it is because I'm scared of the dentist. So I eat the seaweed product that gets the tartar off my teeth. So when it comes to picking my teeth, I don't have so much drama. So that is one reason I've been doing that for about maybe a year and a half. And I sneak tiny amounts into the kids' food so they get a bit of iodine, because where else are you going to get iodine? Yeah. All the iodine that's in our soil is actually because we used to be covered by sea, and then the iodine, because all iodine comes from the sea. And so isn't that interesting? So as we deplete our soils, your iodine goes down to zero. Iodine is so important. It's grossly misunderstood. Anyway, I don't want to get into the whole seaweed thing, but I love that product. Actually, I do like a couple of supplements. Followed closely by algae. I love a bit of algae. I love the stuff grown in Nevada desert. These tubes of green pond scum, essentially, in a little glass tube, but it's so nutritious. And there's a great great book called Toxic by Neil Nathan, and he shows that when you take things like algae and bentonite clay and other binders, they do actually leach out from heavy metals. If you have amalgam fillings, which I do, which I'm getting replaced now in a couple of weeks, you can take out toxins and pesticides and all sorts of things from your gut. So these little plants are awesome. It might be one reason why gut-sick dogs eat soil. It might be for the soil probiotics, but it might be for the humic fulvic acid, but also might be for the algae. So seaweed, nutrition, antioxidants, anti-inflammatory, algae, wonderful. Also a binder. Those two, they're at the top of my list. I take back, use those. Don't ignore those. They're a handy little addition. Pop out that first bit from the conversation.
Okay, last question. What's one enrichment activity every dog parent should try?
100% scattering food into a big hairy field. Dudley's a scavenger of the highest order, so you get tiny little bits of meat, and you go somewhere, go to your back garden, and it's just full out into the grass, and he has to go find all those bits and pieces. That's what we do for animals in the zoo. That's behavioral enrichment, and we still just plonk the food down in the bowl for the dog. Imagine getting kibbled every day. Imagine having a nose that that sensitive and eating that chemical preserved crap every day. So, but even just putting the raw down now, I'm just popping his food out in different places, but scattering the food around for a nosy dog like a Cocker Spaniel or any dog that lives on the nose is a wonderful thing to do, and nothing makes them happier. So I love doing that. Throw it as far away as you can, and he will find it every single time. It takes him about 5 minutes, and it burns up a lot of energy. So it's such an easy thing to do. So why wouldn't you?
Yeah, such a great activity for an older dog as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah, actually, yes, I still do it with him all the time. I just bring little bits and pieces, and it doesn't matter how small. He'll just spend half an hour trying to get every bit of dust because he's such a scavenger,
Yeah.
But his nose will never stop working. So yeah, that's a good one for an older dog. Yeah, good idea.
In our house we call it a sniffari. Let's go on a
sniffari. Very nice. Oh, I'm going to take that and pass it off as my own. That's a good one.
Carolina was right. She said 30 seconds for Conor to answer a question, not a chance.
It's not possible. It's not possible. You can crop it and make it look like 30 seconds if you wish.
All right, we're going to go through, and let me just scroll to the top and see what questions I may have missed from our audience. There was one Tracy asked, where did it go?
Is there such a
thing as a postbiotic?
Yeah. Like, listen, if you're into your bacterial probiotics, and you, by the way, the bacterial probiotic that I absolutely love is FMT. I absolutely love FMT, and I will use that, but I'm talking about everyday usage supplements, those probiotics I don't. But for acute gut injury, FMT is by far the best. You want to see the C. difficile facts. Do you know 30,000 Americans a year are killed by C. diff? It's what kills you when you're in ICU. If you get C. diff, Clostridium difficile, you have a 32% chance of making it out. You have a 68% chance you're going to die if you get C. diff today with the antibiotics we have today. It kills 30,000 Americans a year. It is a top killer of Americans. And we've got no defense against it. FMT cures more than 90% of people that take FMT when they've got C. diff. It is an absolute lifesaver. They've got dozens of studies behind it for so many different types of gastro issues, IBD, and all sorts of things. But this C. diff thing is, I'm like, why is that not on the front page of the New York Times? It's like, hey guys, listen, if you're in the ICU and just take these capsules, boom, take it like a probiotic. And that is, it's just unbelievable. Check out those C. diff stats. Go to ChatGPT or go to whatever the source you go for looking for your studies, and check. And
you're saying there's a seal that we should be looking for?
No, it's a FMT. It's a fecal microbial transit. It's a type of probiotic. It's in a capsule. Yeah. It's poo in a capsule. But you just buy them from any company. There's a number of companies. There's a number of people producing them for pets. Some people produce them for humans. But like for a probiotic, it's got all the bacteria you can possibly have that don't die in oxygen, and it's also got in the right proportions and all the yeasts and all the other bits and pieces. So I love a bit of FMT. But when it comes to postbiotics, if I was using a bacterial probiotic, over-the-counter bacterial probiotic, I would get a little bit of water, and I'd get a little bit of yogurt or some sort of food source, and I'd make a little drink, and I'd put the probiotic, open it up, and put the probiotic. It's freeze-dried. These guys are freeze-dried. They're frozen in time, and you pop them into the liquid and stir. And after 15 minutes, they wake up from the liquid, and after another 15 minutes, they get eating anything that's in there, and they start reproducing and pooing out their wonderful postbiotics into the liquid. So it's not so much the bacteria you're after, it's the stuff they produce and the vitamins and all these cool little switches and bits and pieces they use for fixing the gut membrane and everything. And that's the stuff you want. So the longer you ferment, take a leaf out of Billy Hokeman's book and Juju and all that kind of stuff, the longer you ferment that, the more that good stuff comes out. But you can replicate that just by having a warm glass of bloody milk on your counter. Not bloody, but actually blood would be another great addition. They'd love that. I'm talking a lot here. But so that for postbiotics, because then you get the benefit of the postbiotics. Also, if you take a bacterial probiotic in on top of food, your stomach acid's annihilated. Whereas if you take it in a liquid away from the food, your stomach doesn't hold on to liquids. In through the intestines, guys, go for it. And so all the good guys get in there. So you get 16 to 20 times the amount of gut flora release. So
that's why you got to do that process a little bit beforehand and not just
beforehand. Yeah. So the postbiotic industry is taking off. They're looking at the compounds, bacteria. But the thing is, they will look at, like they do with milk thistle, and they'll look at milk thistle and they'll pick out one active compound that they can isolate, silymarin, and then they'll sell you silymarin in a hospital. It's like, well, no, you should be taking milk thistle extract. Take the whole thing. They'll sell you a little type of CBD. No, you should be taking the whole plant with the THC. So they want to isolate something and sell it to you because that's how you make pills. But honestly, with postbiotics, you want the whole thing, and you want them in your guts producing those things. I would absolutely lean on any postbiotic capsule that stopped my dog's HGE. Yeah, I'm all for it. But I do think that game is just isolating one little thing. Bacteria produce hundreds of compounds, each one, and you've got thousands of different species in there. So it's like to isolate one is just another probiotic kind of bit of nonsense, in my opinion. I don't know much about it, though. I'm just speaking off the cuff.
Yeah. Leslie asked, would Conor recommend adding leafy greens, veggies to dogs' raw meals? That's a good question. Kind of a sneak into this plant fiber topic that we've been on.
Oh, that's what the talk is about. Leslie, you'll know the answer to that when you come to my talk in San Diego, but not to opt away from that. I think if I was formulating for a raw dog food company, I would tell them straight up that I probably wouldn't actually put in the plant matter anymore. There is nothing in plant matter that your dog needs. Nothing. And so people will say things like, there's lots of folate in dark greens, and there is, and there's iron in spinach, not as much as there is in red meat, and that's heme iron. Heme iron is completely different to the iron that's in plants. The problem is plants have various ways of not letting you eat them. There's loads of compounds in plants that are there for their benefit, not for yours. We've evolved to use some of the polyphenols and things because we have to fight off all the FODMAPs and bloody lignans and all the other crap the plants have to stop you eating them. They don't want to be eaten. They're not trying to be nutritious and gone and dead. So the leafy greens come with plant fiber, and I'm going to dispel the plant fiber myth in San Diego. You will be under no illusion that what we thought about plant fiber is almost certainly not the case, and that there is carnivore fiber does the same thing. I'm not here saying that you should be a carnivore and all this kind of buzz that everyone's doing now. Joe Rogan's eating steaks for a living. It's like, okay, well, like, I'm sure that can help some people too. I'm not pushing that. I still eat plant matter. I'm just saying for these little meat eaters, I wonder how much they need. I don't see anything they need in green leafy veg, but I scrape all my plate into the dog's bowl. Sometimes it'll be half veg in his bowl. I don't care. 95% of his diet is pretty cool. And I don't obsess about how much veg or plant matter or percentages or any of that. I'm just saying I'm not sure what he actually needs from that. I just don't want to put it in the bin because I'm mean and miserable. I want to save money so the dog can eat it. That's about it.
Yeah, but it's just not the majority of his diet, right?
No, it's definitely not.
It's so hard to say that raw food companies that are including plant matter in their diets are technically using them as a filler.
No, probably not. Like, some meat cuts are cheaper than some of the plant ingredients you're putting in there. I mean, so no, I wouldn't say they're putting it in as a filler. I think some companies are using an awful lot of carcass in their mix, a lot of bone, and putting in some root veg and turnip and these tough veg. Sweet potato comes with a load of soluble fiber. Green leafy veg, broccoli. Broccoli has some serious things in there that, if broccoli is a whole other conversation. It'll be mentioned in my talk. People will be surprised.
Broccoli sprouts. I hope you're going to touch on that too.
Oh, broccoli sprouts. Yeah. Well, yeah, they are awesome. I have to say they pack a whole heap of the good stuff, but they come with issues. So look, the green leafy veg bit is tricky. It's hard to tell people to stop putting it in. I don't think some companies are using it because it will help the dog pass a very bony meal because they're grinding up bloody chicken carcass, but I think most people are putting in there because they really believe that the dog needs that kind of stuff. But there's no evidence that dogs out in the wild eat that material. They don't. Truly feral dogs do not eat plant matter. They don't go off, and there'll always be that. So what about the wolves that eat the blueberries in Yellowstone National Park? Say, yeah, show me other wolves that do that. Any other wolves? So there is, yes, some animals can do that now and again medicinally, but did you know that summertime, the end of summer, is one of the leanest times for a wolf, not winter? Did you know that? I just got told that recently over in the US.
I would have imagined that because of the heat.
Yeah, they say that's when the animals are at their most robust. The prey animals are at their fittest. So you just can't catch them. And I was like, what? I said, because there's no more babies. The babies are now 5 months old. You can't catch a baby. So like a cheetah or they're not going to catch babies that are 6 months old. They're at their fittest. They're in their teens. Mm-hmm. And so he said when the snow hits, they're easier to catch. Anyway, the point is, there's a lot of different reasons why an animal might pick up bits and pieces, but
they do eat feathers. A feral dog in the wild.
Oh yeah, they're whole animal eaters. They'll eat the whole thing. They'll eat that lizard's tail and they'll eat the chicken's head. I mean, they are whole animal eaters. Now, cats can be a bit more selective, but dogs are definitely more robust. But the studies of truly feral dogs are missing. All we have are studies of actual village dogs, which are fed by hand by the humans at nighttime. And what do poor people feed in these areas where dogs are allowed roam lax? Plant matter. They don't waste meat on their dogs in poorer regions. So you get these dogs that are reared on plant matter, and so they will select a little bit of plant matter. But truly feral dogs, there's no evidence of that at all. So it's there's 5 studies of truly feral dogs, and they're all like, ooh, very carnivorous, you know. So the diet studies are confusing. So I don't really put any plant matter on the dog's bowl, because I think he needs it. I don't think there's anything in it. You name anything and it's found in meat. And sometimes people think you need more, and this thing has more vitamin E than that, but you don't need a whole lot of vitamin E. It turns out that was just based on these studies of crap vitamin E that we make in the laboratory. But natural vitamin E, you need very little amounts of it because it's so effective. It's such a powerful antioxidant. But the crap we make is only 1/8 of the molecule. I'm going off topic, but like the leafy green thing it's a complicated one, and people won't be ready for the answer until they actually hear the talk on fiber. And once I've done your talk, then I will release that information after. I don't want to do it beforehand because I don't want to ruin the big reveals, you know.
Awesome. We're looking forward to that. All right, we have time for 2 more questions. Actually, I just wanted to put this up because normally I skip all of these posts, or we're stroking your ego, and people are like, "Oh, I love Conor," and that. But Nicole really wanted you to know that she could listen to you all day.
Oh, absolutely. I will. Yeah. Do you know what I need to do? I've got a AI that can mimic my voice, and I'm going to get my book read out in my voice, but I don't have to read it because I can't go back through it. It's like I've vomited on the ground and I have to pick through it later. I'm not going back to it. So I seem unable to go back, but now AI might be able to do it if I give it enough. You don't have to give it much, and I mean, it'll fool your mum on the phone already just from a few seconds of conversation. So anyway, bloody hell, Conor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, this is the second to last one. What good stuff for dogs is in their feathers?
That that is, well, Royal Canin would say lots. I would say it's the coarse fiber. When you look at, there's 2 types of fiber. When you think about fiber in the plant kingdom, you have soluble fiber, the gel that's in your chia seeds. Ooh, that's lovely, great for bacteria. And then there's indigestible fiber, which is crude fiber. That's the hard, impossible to digest stuff. Both play a function. One feeds the gut flora, and the other one plays a function in the osmotic potential of your gut and helping poo move along in some instances. And so, but carnivore fiber does that too. But I don't want to ruin this. You've got different types of fiber in there. You've got different types of things that replicate exactly what happens. But if you think about it, hair and feathers, it's just like the outside of a corn and husk kernel, you know. So that's what feathers do. It's indigestible matter that adds bulk to the stool, proper carnivore roughage. And we have studies of big cats to show that they are far gut healthier when those bits are put in.
I remember reading this from Dr. Karen Becker years ago. She said fur, feet, and feathers are the highest form of manganese, source of manganese.
Yeah, if they could digest them. But they can't digest them. The manganese information is tricky because the couple of studies that we have on manganese from the dry food manufacturers are just nonsense. You look at them and go, 3 puppies were fed this for 2 days, and therefore they should have this amount of manganese every day of their life. It's just nonsense. So, and both based on manganese oxide. And manganese oxide is useless. You can't absorb it. So dogs have to be fed lots of it. There's no study of natural manganese. It turns out there's very little manganese in the body. And that's because you would imagine prey animals don't need a whole lot of manganese. Otherwise, if they'd all be manganese deficient. To suggest that they can I also pushed for years with Karen saying about the hair and the feathers and the hide and the skin, but that's the stuff that comes out in the poo. They can't digest that matter any more than they can break down plant cell walls. That stuff is impossible to digest. They can't digest a feather. So it turns out cats can digest animal hair and produce butyrates from it. Unbelievably, only animals on the planet, but most animals can. So it's there probably for roughage. And the amount of manganese that's in cartilage and bone is probably the amount of manganese your dog and cat needs, but no studies to back that up.
Yeah, good to know. I'll have to, I'm going to send you an email about that after this. Okay, last question from Amanda. If you had to choose the best topper to put on a dog's food, what would it be? I think we landed on seaweed.
Yeah. Love a bit of that. Love a sprinkle of seaweed. Use the brown. There's a couple of brown seaweeds that have certain few coins that clean the teeth. So if you're not feeding enough bones, or your dog's getting older, he's not getting enough chew factor, that takes the tartar off the teeth. So it's like that's the basics of most of our dental products that we sell. And so like any one of those is great. A little bit of algae as a binder to leach out some of the bad stuff now and again. You know, you can do a hair analysis on your dog before and after. This is what this book Toxic was showing us, and you can just pump in this binder, a teaspoon of this every day, and then you measure the amount of mercury a month later, and it's depleted, it's gone. So it's like you can really get this stuff out of the body. So as much as we talk about all these chemicals we put in the environment, and if they're forever chemicals in our home, and Habib and Becker are very strong on that. You do remember that that is a thing. They do accumulate in the body. They are causing inflammation. They're adding to our issues, but you can remove them very simply, and you can do hair analysis to keep an eye on that. It's really cheap, easy way of getting some major health points that we'd not normally talk about. I love those little things. I wish I just did it for myself. Instead, I just talk about it, just like my knee and the glucosamine control. It's just my wife always says when she sees me having a beer or stuffing into a bit of ice cream or giving the dog some ice cream, she'll go, "Oh, if they could only see you now." She always says that. It's like, I'm not pure. Life's too short. His life is too short.
That's
it's like,
right.
I'm not going to deny him a bit of ice cream. No way.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, another reason you guys should come to the summit, we have Chelsea Kent coming, and she's going to be doing a talk on hair mineral testing analysis.
Yes, perfect. I need to talk to her. Cool.
Yeah, she's awesome. Yeah. I'm sorry we couldn't get to the rest of the questions you guys sent in. Unfortunately, you're just going to have to come to San Diego and meet Conor at the summit, October 11th and 12th. Get your tickets while you can. Conor, thank you so much for coming on live to us. Looking forward to seeing you guys again.
Take it easy, guys. Bye-bye.
See ya.